terms of the spectrometer itself, and this is kind of how it looks around the volume story. I don't know if you think it shows anything of any particular interest here, but you can see for yourself the volume against the spectrometer showing you some interesting trade ideas. It's quite clear that we should probably, looking at this, we should probably be working into these red areas. And when it starts to look a little bit more like this, we should maybe be working into these blue areas. And when it starts to look like this, we should maybe be working back into the red areas again. Yeah, but does that make sense? So when you see the amp a lot higher than the volume, there's a story to be had here. There's a story to be had. The amp's a lot higher. The amp's actually positive here. So there's a story to be had here from the sell side. So you can see quite clearly when the volume broke on gold, it's very difficult to stop it. Now, obviously, once it stops, it should see the volume starting to turn back round, and it should see what we then call an exhaustion print into the bottom edges. So we can start to recognize some of these little clues. Here's a great example of what we would be imagining as a perfect buy trade. Look, I mean, the volume actually is all bullish. So we know that if we get trappy trades into that bullishness, we know that we could perhaps take a little bit of a smash and grab into this. So I'd imagine a buy trade below that liquidity there would have been perfect. And you can see I'm able to look at this chart without the price to see that narrative. So for example, here you can see where the liquidity is. I can see the pockets of liquidity where the red lines are. So when that starts to decline here, I'm now looking into any of those pockets for a sell opportunity, right? You see how clear that is? Any of those pockets for some selling opportunities. Now that's got to be declining. So likewise, when this is rising here, I'm going to start looking into that area there, and I'm going to say, well, if I can get into these pockets here, but obviously I've got to make sure that that's now starting to at least show some sort of signs of turning. So that type of pocket there looks absolutely perfect. And likewise, this set of pockets here looks just too good to be true. So when we add in price, you can see that those areas were actually really quite good for trading, right? You see how nice those sell trades were at the top edge, how nice this little buy reversal was, and then this cheeky little turn here prior to the big volume breaker gives us quite an interesting storyline takeaway from this, isn't it? Quite an interesting storyline. Makes any sense? Makes a lot of sense. Thank you very much. So it's trying to find that idea of combining the key ingredients, the key components that we can take away from this to try and recognize the easy stuff. So you can see when the volume is collapsing into this area here, do you see how much that stands out in terms of the spectrometer? You see how that volume collapses? You can't really see it because it keeps on running off because of the gap stuff, but you know, this is still positive. So, I mean, I'm not expecting this to sell off anytime soon because the volume is bullish here, right? That's the point. The volume's bullish. So this is what we call an exhaustion print. And we would imagine that that type of move's probably going to have market maker written all over it in terms of exhaustion. And then the turnaround was pretty brutal, pretty nice at that stage. So just thinking about it, possibly adding it into the spectrometer this weekend. On Thursday. We might get around to doing that into the spectrometer on Thursday. We'll see.